The nigga was motherfucking hyped up. The nigga just grabbed the nigga, snuffed the nigga, and it was on from there. The motherfucker, it wasn't nothing stopping them.
What the rest of those niggas do?
Man, the motherfuckers was ready for anything. The niggas was packing burners. The niggas was ready to fight. Whatever they had to do, Holmes. The niggas was on the real flip mode, Holmes. They was coming out like a motherfucker. The nigga was amped. He was like, come on, motherfucker. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Yeah. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Release the brainstorm to make your motherfucking brain warm. A strange form, something kind of lyrical. Biggie the bastard, the God's kind of spiritual. Well, in God we trust, guns are bust. Stop that disgusting, suicide thumping. And do you know where you're going to? Do you like the things that I bring? I got 7 Mac 11s, about 8 38s, 9 9s, 10 Mac 10s. The shit's never end. You can't touch my riches, even if you had MC Hammer and them 357 bitches. Biggie Smalls, the millionaire, the mansion, the yacht, the 2 weed spots, the 2 hot clocks. That's how I got the weed spot. I shot Tread in the head, took the bread and the lamb spread. Little Gotti got the shotty to your body, so don't resist or you might miss Christmas.
Damn, that remix is lit. What up, people? And thanks for coming on the stream today. Also, thanks for hitting those likes. So I ran into some problems with my internet last night. I apologize if you hear the sound of my fan, but it is hot as a motherfucker in Chicago today. You don't even know. Hot as fuck. So, I called Comcast. I was on the phone with them yesterday for like a good hour. They said they were going to send a technician down. They found out that there was some problem either with my modem or the cables themselves where it was like timing out a lot. And my download and upload were like severely hampered. However, they said they were going to send a technician down. And then today, I'm like doing a stream for Honey Badger Radio for the patrons only. And I'm like, this shit's working just fine. I was afraid I was going to have to cancel that one. So everything was working good. So I was like, well, shit, I'm going to do my shit today. Because the guy's not supposed to come till tomorrow. I'll let the technician come anyways. Maybe he can, you know, make sure that this doesn't happen again. And that I can get a consistent internet connection without any issues. Because this is basically my job now. So if I can't produce, I can't eat. I need an internet to do that. I am not on DSL. I'm cable. Comcast they have fiber optic in the city too, but not in my area. So hopefully enough white people move in that they bring the fiber optic here. I'm just being truthful. That's not racist. So please, white people, move into my neighborhood. I mean, we got some, but we need a lot more. We need the shit fully gentrified. I want a Starbucks on the corner. Then I know I got fiber optic as soon as I see the Starbucks. And maybe like a Bed Bath & Beyond. That's basically that'll lock it down for sure. And then I'll really be able to bring you guys the content. So, hope you guys are doing good. I am doing great. I'm back from a long-ass dog walk. Jojo is good and tired, so he shouldn't be a pain in the ass. And I want to talk about Vampire the Masquerade. So, cable, yeah, technician needed. Yeah, he should be down tomorrow. But it seems to be working today just fine. Like, I checked it, and my upload was really good. That was the problem. It wasn't my download speed. It was my upload speed. It was like, my upload speed that I paid for is something like 20 gigabytes. Or not gigabytes. 20 megabytes per second. And I was reeling in like 2. That was like a tenth of what I should be getting for what I pay. And it cost me a lot for this internet. And I specifically upgraded my internet so that I could do the show. So I'm using my money to get a better internet so I can make Honey Badger Radio better. But before we get into Vampire the Masquerade, I saw somebody, Drunken Aussie, said, did you hear about the shooting at the Madden tournament in Jacksonville? No, I'm going to look it up right now. Madden tournament shot up 9 minutes ago. Holy fucking shit. Deadly shooting at Madden 19 tournament in Jacksonville, Florida. Well, CNN, it's not really I need more info, motherfuckers. Here we go. I'll move this over here so you guys can see it. Mass shooting at video game tournament in Jacksonville leaves multiple dead. Uh-oh. They talking about the video game? Let's see. Multiple people were killed in a mass shooting during a video game tournament at a shopping and dining complex in downtown Jacksonville, Florida, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office said Sunday afternoon. Preliminary reports say 4 people were killed of the 11 people who were shot, according to a law enforcement official briefed on the incident. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office said there were multiple fatalities and many transported to hospitals. One suspect was dead at the scene, the sheriff's office said, and it was not known if there was another suspect. The shooting occurred at the Jacksonville Landing Complex during a qualifying event for the Madden 19 tournament at the GLHF Game Bar, according to the Twitter of Complexity Gaming, one of the gaming teams. Let me right-click on this and just put that in there. Memorial Hospital in Jacksonville, Florida, is treating at least 3 patients that were involved in the gaming shooting incident. Hospital spokesman Pete Moberg tells CNN all of the patients are in stable condition, Moberg says. Anybody out here from Jacksonville? Anybody here? Florida man. Florida man continues. Oh my God. On an online stream of the Madden event posted in the website Twitch, several loud gunshots can be heard. Oh shit, it's on Twitch? Holy shit, hold on. Shut up. Get out of here, Anderson blooper. After several gunshots, people scream and one person cries, "Oh fuck! What'd he shoot me with?" Oh wait, actually only 2 asterisks. So oh fug, or oh fag, or oh fuh. I don't know. The stream did not show the shooting. I'm still shocked. The Jacksonville Landing is an open-air marketplace with stores, bars, and restaurants in downtown Jacksonville along the St. Johns River. The police, Ryan Alleman, who came from Texas to participate in the gaming tournament, said he ducked down and ran toward the restroom when he heard the gunshots. He stayed there for about 10 minutes. I'm still shocked. I can hardly talk, he said. The sheriff's office said many people found places to hide when the shooting started. We are finding many people hiding in locked areas at the landing, the sheriff's office tweeted. We ask that you stay calm, stay where you are hiding. SWAT is doing a methodical search inside the landing. We will get to you. Please don't come running out. Malik Brunson said he was at a nearby Hooters restaurant when the shooting occurred. Funny that you can just admit that. Yeah, I was at Hooters. All I heard was he got a gun and the shooting started. One of the men ran into Hooters with the shot wounds. They locked us in the restaurant, he said in a social media message. Hooters might be the safest place to hide when there's a fucking mass shooting going on. Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry said he is in contact with Jacksonville Sheriff Mike Williams regarding the shooting, according to the City of Jacksonville's Twitter account. Mayor Lenny Curry and Sheriff Williams are in contact regarding the ongoing situation at the landing, the city said in a tweet. Federal law enforcement officials are monitoring the situation in Jacksonville. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, is responding to the scene in Jacksonville Landing, a law enforcement source told CNN. All right. Well, we don't know anything else about it at this point then, do we? First thing you do is post it on Facebook. I hope the wounded get help, for sure. I hope that, well, I hope people get taken care of, and I hope that they catch the person who did it. So, President Trump was briefed on the Jacksonville shooting. Yeah, I'm sure he knows. There was just so many gunshots. Well, considering 4 people are dead so far, it's not so bad, considering all the gunshots. And it was like sounds like it was in a mall. 4 killed, 7 wounded. Woo! Madden video game maker. This is horrible. Why would you go to the... well, okay, he just issued a statement on Twitter. Like, I don't think this has anything to do with Madden, but I know people are going to make it about Madden. And it's funny, because I know this is going to happen. Watch in before Feminist Frequency and Jonathan McIntosh and all the other blue check marks come out, and they basically talk about how video games creates mass shooters. Even ones that involve football, because football is still toxic masculinity. Even if it's a football franchise that I didn't even realize motherfuckers were still playing because I got sick of Madden back on the Sega Genesis or whenever it first came out. I think it was Genesis or maybe like the first PlayStation. And they're going to talk about how basically being competitive is the problem. And I don't know if the shooter did this. We don't know the motive yet. We don't know if the shooter had anything to do with Madden, if they just wanted to go somewhere where they knew there'd be a certain kind of person. Maybe they wanted to kill a bunch of men. We don't know anything. Excuse me. We don't know anything about the shooter. We don't know. I mean, like, there's, I guess, somebody, a witness said that they used the word he, saying he got a gun. But for all we know, it could just turn out to be not a man. I don't know. And I wonder what they're going to say when the details do come out. Is he going to turn out to be an Asian man? Is he going to turn out to be, just I don't know, like a undocumented migrant that's really frustrated with the fact that his kids are being held at the border or something? I don't know. Well, thank you for sharing this link. I'm going to put this in the newsroom. And maybe we'll talk about it on Tuesday as more details come out. Or I'll do a breaking badger on it with Lindsay. As I get more info, I'm just going to wait until I know more. But thank you so much for telling me about it. That's crazy. So this is still related to the culture war in its own way. I think. It might be. It depends on what comes out. It may not be. Yeah, it could be another Elliot Rodger. It could be anything. Don't know. ISIS will probably claim, they'll probably take credit for it. How to watch the first Madden NFL 19 Classic Satellite Qualifier. Well, that's not probably gonna work out. Oh, and this is no longer on Twitch. Could not find that clip. So they must have took it down. Sorry, guys. I'm sure it's around someplace. No, I just wasn't sure if I wanted to say Lindsay or Stapler. Or whatever. I don't know. Sometimes I forget, though. It's all the weed. Okay, let me let me check something here. Madden shooting clip Twitch. I kind of want to look it up now. Videos. One hour ago. I'm just checking something. If it works, I'll share it. Oh, come on. This is bullshit. I hate the way some people report the news on YouTube. They have like these robots that like say the shit and they do countdowns. This is bullshit too. No, this is all, there's no, I can't see the clip. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just going to move on. If I learn more info, we'll talk about it. If you guys find anything for me, let me know. YouTube was shot up by a Desi chick, salty about demonetization, but she only wounded 3 and killed herself. Yeah, well, women suck at school shootings compared to men. We're way better at mass shootings. And suicide. We're the shit when it comes to suicide. You can't match us on that. Okay, so this is a tweet by Liana K. Somebody sent me, Joey Jojo actually, tweeted it at me. He asked me what I thought. And now, Liana K, or Liana K, is a self-described feminist, but it's very important that you guys know that she's one of the good ones. This is according to her. She's one of those pro-sex feminists that, you know, believes in real equality and decency and is totally reasonable and wants people to have their video games and doesn't want to take things away from people. And she's also nerdy like you, and she likes comics and she likes movies, and, you know, she gets all the pop culture references. She probably knows all the lines in all the Harry Potters or whatever it is that she happens to be into. She's totally cool. But she's also the biggest fence sitter ever. Shaman King says, no, she isn't. No, I know. I don't like Liana K. I really don't. I don't like her stances. I cannot stand the way that she makes arguments. I hate how narcissistic she is. It's her character traits, let me put it that way. I don't wish anything ill to happen to Liana Kersner, but I don't like her. I don't think that she's... how do I put this? I don't think that she's very smart. I don't think that she has great ideas. I don't think she's challenged anything. I think that she is more concerned with keeping things copacetic and peaceful than actually solving problems. And, of course, she is still, despite being a nice feminist, she is still a feminist. And she still believes in core things that I think are detestable. All right? She still believes in patriarchy. She still believes in rape culture. She still believes that women have it worse. She still believes that, you know, probably believes in the wage gap. I wouldn't be surprised. She still believes in most of the main feminist things. She's just nicer about it. And I think that people give her a pass, and that pisses me off more than the fact that Liana K is a pretty a disingenuous person with her views. What's more annoying is that wait, is this unlisted? Because it wasn't supposed to be unlisted. Is this video public, guys? I gotta check something because it's showing that it's unlisted, and I'm like, kind of worried about that. Should be, because I made it public. Yeah. All right, never mind. I apologize. Okay, moving on. Sorry. What was I saying? Well, anyway, she believes the main stuff, you know, and well, oh yeah, but here's the thing. What infuriates me is not that she's this way. There are people like this. I don't hate the woman. I just disagree with her at the end of the day. But what really pisses me off is that there are so many people that think that she's a good person because of it. That her views are okay. That being in the middle ground is more important than doing the right thing. Is basically like not being seen as or not being a part of what they believe is extremist behavior is more important than being honest and talking about things as they are and trying to actually solve problems or at least talk about them. This is the thing, right? So here's Liana K's post. I don't know what this is about. So I might not have the context here. And if I don't, then I apologize. Maybe one of you guys can help me out. And if anybody watches this afterwards that thinks that I took her out of context when I'm just looking at the tweet that's in front of me, then you let me know. Because here's the thing. Sometimes she does this vague posting shit where she'll say something and you know that she could be talking about something specific, but she doesn't name it. So it comes across as passive-aggressive shit. And I can't stand that either, right? Like, that's what I think this is. So I don't know what it is specifically she's talking about, so I can only talk about what I see. All right, so she writes, anyone who gets involved in the culture war now does so knowing that all it does is destroy everything it touches. I cannot think of a single problem the culture war has solved. I can think of many problems that it's created. All right, couple questions here. What problems has the culture war created? Do you guys know what problems our culture war has made? Are you saying people have lost their jobs? Are you talking about times where people have been fired from projects or they've had their livelihoods ruined? And who's done that, Liana? Who's responsible for that? When James Gunn was unable to do a Guardians 3 and Disney/Marvel Studios had to put it on hold, which means they may never get back around to doing it, okay? When that happened, do you think that that was a needless consequence that should never have occurred? Do you think that is when we crossed the line with the hashtag #MeToo movement? Is when James Gunn was taken off a project? When somebody that makes videos that or movies that you like was taken off? Because I can tell you right now, and I'm just using James Gunn as an example, because I know that when the James Gunn thing happened, people I know, my friends, they got all upset, and they were like, this is bullshit, man. He didn't do anything wrong, and I'm sad now because there won't be a third Guardians movie or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I like those movies too, but you reap what you sow. For all the time that nobody said shit when there were witch hunts against people they didn't like, and they were okay with that. Now that it happens to somebody that they do like, now that Mike Cernovich, who's the guy who I think a lot of people say is responsible for what happened to James Gunn, now that he's done that, I can't get mad at him because he's just playing the same fucking game. And this is you reap what you sow. This is what it created. I don't think that's a problem. I think what was a problem was when Me Too was able to take off in the first fucking place. And that people were able to just like go on witch hunts and destroy people's lives without evidence and without due process. That was when it was a problem. And nobody snipped it in the bud back then, so now here we are. So I don't know, like this is more this fence sitting shit that I'm talking about. Okay? When I ranted about fence sitting on the HBR news show, somebody made a comment saying that, you know, that I was misrepresenting because sometimes the fence sitting is the appropriate way to go, right? Like sometimes it is a complicated issue that's a balance between two things or whatever. Look, motherfucker, that's not what I'm talking about. If it's legitimate, then I'm not obviously in favor. I'm not against people fence sitting when it's clear that is, that makes sense. But I think in many, if not most cases, people don't fence sit because they know that there's a bit of truth on both sides of a given argument. They fence sit because they're cowards and they don't want to take a side. And they don't want to actually look at the issues and see that this is not something that has a right or two positions where they're like equally wrong and equally right at the same time, and somehow you're super brilliant because you're in the middle. That's not the case here. The problem is that if you are okay with what happened with Me Too up until now, then you're okay with Me Too even when it affects people you don't like. Period. And I was never okay with it from the start, and that's the way you do it. I'm not okay with what happened to James Gunn, but fuck it. This is where we are now. This is the reality. This might be what has to happen. Like with Asia Argento, right? When we come to the grips with the reality that she effectively committed statutory rape against that young man, and there's no consequences, and she continues to work, it's hopefully going to sink the Me Too thing. People are going to realize the shit is not consistent. I would like to believe that. I don't know. People can be really stupid. Frenchinator 2 says there's one guy that had a broad definition of moral panic that it makes you and HBR starting a moral panic. I put it in hashtag show reviews. It is Grim Jim. Grim Jim? Is that, I'll take a look. I don't know. Show reviews. Here it is. That might be James Desborough, who's I'm friends with. He didn't say anything to me though. I'm just checking something. Oh, criticism versus panic debate. Okay. It's a video. I can't watch it now, but broad definition of moral panic, says UNHPR. I don't see how we'd started a moral panic, but I mean, I'm open to seeing that. I know that sometimes we can be hyperbolic, though, and I fully admit that I'm, sometimes I get caught up in what's going on. And But I always calm down, if that even happens. There are all those female teachers who got off with a slap on the wrist. Yeah. We just say nice and then we move on. But, you know, I go to, like, let's look at the comments under Liana Kersner's tweet. This guy named Harlot says, 1 out of 2, unfortunate side effect of radicalized groups arguing over societal issues is that any attempt at making conversation about complex issues in public space is at a risk of being hijacked by those who abandon nuance for passion. Finding balance between reach for nuanced concepts and the odds of it being taken over by people who are simply loud is getting harder. But I do feel like the people's desire to reject both extremes is growing considerably too. What is extreme, though? What are we talking about? Can you define radicalized groups and extremes? Because I don't think that it's... I don't think that the arguments that we have necessarily fall into extreme group A and extreme group B. I think that most of the time they fall into extreme group A and everybody else. Like big double down social justice, intersectional feminist social justice warrior types are extremists most of the time. The vocal ones for sure. Right? And then there's everybody else who doesn't want to deal with that. That's not an extremist position. I don't know. This is the thing that pisses me off about people like Liana K and the people who follow her, is they think that they have this you know, that feel when too intelligent, that big brain like approach that, well, I don't see why you guys are like so mad at each other, like always arguing. You're so extreme. Don't you see the nuance in this discussion? Can we talk about the nuance in pedophilia? Can we talk about the nuance in fucking, you know, this latest Islamic attack? Can we talk about the nuance with, I don't know, like these fucking Francesca Ramsey or Sarah, what's her name? Sarah Jeong? That super racist Korean chick that worked for the New York Times, or Vietnamese, whatever the fuck. Like that. Some of these issues, it's not nuance versus not nuance. It's nut jobs versus normal people. And sometimes the arguments are right versus wrong. Or mostly right versus mostly wrong. Lay intelligent middleman. Yeah, lay intelligent middleman. Well, competing forever as an example of moral panic. Well, I think... Do you think that, and this is just an aside, because I mean, obviously I'm not Dave Cullen, but do you think that what he's doing is a moral panic, or do you think that Dave Cullen is right to be concerned? Also, I will say this. This is how I see it. Okay, so Grimm, and I like him. I think he's a good guy. He is a leftist for sure. And that's not a problem. You know, I don't care. As long as you're not unreasonable, it's fine. I mean, to some degree, I think that being on the left is a bit unreasonable, but I will assume that he's not trying to tear down civilization. I'll be as charitable as I can. People who are on the left tend to be less concerned with the future, and so they don't usually see moral panics as frequently as people on the right. People who are more conservative tend to worry about the future. It's like Jordan P. Peterson said, they're more conscientious. That means they're more concerned. And I think that that's why people like Dave Cullen see the slightest infringes on what appears to be freedom of speech as really serious things that you should be worried about. And I tend to agree with that, because I see that when people don't do anything, they keep chipping away little by little. And the people who are like, well, you're making a mountain out of a molehill, I think that there's definitely a place for that, but I think there is a point at which you have to be like, okay, even if I'm overreacting, I think I should react. Because even if I'm overreacting, if I correct the course, then who knows if I've actually, rescued us from censorship or oppression or whatever. I mean, censorship is a form of oppression when you think about it. Yeah, Computing Forever's in Ireland. It's quite bad where he is. Yeah, I don't think he's been unreasonable. No. Dave's last vid was so real, I seriously thought it's reality that Ireland had a ban on time travel. Yeah. I would, if he had just stopped it at that, without going into the rest of the bit, I would have bought it. Yeah, it's a 5-trait thing. And I think it's just a matter of perspective. I think Grim Jim thinks that it's nothing to worry about, but he has a more... you know, he's more of a has a leftist view, and Dave Cullen is more of a right-wing guy. So his perspective is different. Then again, that doesn't mean that this is something that you should fence sit on. I think the reason why I side with Dave Cullen is because I looked at the evidence that he's put forward, and I've thought about whether or not this is really something you should be worried about. And I do think it's something that you should be worried about. And I do think it's cause for concern in a big way. But it's not like I just emotionally responded to it. The Doctor is banned from Ireland? I don't know what you mean by that. Ireland has time travel, yeah. Oh, Wikipedia snippet, I get what you're saying now, so no need to explain. Doctor Who is what you're talking about. Got it. Because it's illegal in Ireland, I get it. Brian, didn't I mention VTM going SJW in the Badger Skype a few weeks ago? VTM? I don't know who VTM is. I'm sorry. Okay, well, anyway. So, my response to Liana Kersner's thing was this. Sounds like quitting. Fuck that. The culture war is necessary. Because if we don't battle... And I was kind of, like, writing quickly. But basically, my point is this. The culture war is necessary, and it is here. And there's no... I wish we didn't do it. I think it's doing more harm than good. I actually think it's done more good. I think people knowing when SJWs go too far, which is almost all the fucking time now, is very useful. And you can look and see what the young people today are talking about. I'm talking like kids, like people in grade school and just starting high school. Oh, Vampire the Masquerade. Yeah. I'm going to get to that. I'm sorry, I got a little derailed, but like... Fuck. I lost what I was gonna say. Yeah, the culture war. It's necessary. We need it because if we don't have this out in the battlefield of ideas, which I think is how the culture war expresses itself. Oh yeah, I was talking about the kids. Kids today are actually quite woke on this stuff. Go online and look up meme videos. I used to watch meme video compilations when I was on chemotherapy because I would watch a lot of, like, you know, MRA videos, Jordan B. Peterson videos, like Free Domain Radio, whatever. And the thing is that, you know, after a while you get burned out on that. And I was, like, bedridden, so I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, like, get out of the house. I had a hard time walking and all that. So while I was recovering, I was watching a lot of videos. And so when you get burned out on those things, you watch other videos, stuff for fun, to sort of just let your brain just to veg out, right? And I would watch. No, I haven't talked about Vampire the Masquerade yet. I'm gonna get to that. So I would watch these like meme compilation videos, and there's tons of them. There's like Super H4H4. There's Super High. There's Lord Keck. There's all these other ones on YouTube, and they would just put together funny video clips. You know, vines, stuff from video games, stuff from streams, shit people put together, whatever. But here's the funny thing, though. This is the stuff that little, like, younger kids that grew up on the internet, that watch YouTube all day, this is the stuff that they're watching. We're talking millions of views, right? There's a surprising amount of Jordan B. Peterson clips in there. There's a surprising amount, and like Jordan B. Peterson versus Kathy Newman clips. Jordan B. Peterson on H3H3. Jordan B. Peterson, you know, just like owning people online. There's also a surprising number of anti-feminist clips on there because feminists have way overplayed their hand, right? Now, people like Sargon mistakenly make the argument that they've lost the battle on the internet. But I don't agree with that. And I also think that even if that's somewhat true, it doesn't matter because they rule the institutions of politics, the media, the entertainment industry, the news, and academia. And that's basically almost everything, really. But kids are waking up to that shit. They're watching. They see that these guys are the fun police. You know that one meme of the girl who's like, this is why I fucking hate video games, because it caters to the male fantasy and then it cuts to something funny. They love those clips. You know, those are very popular. And the thing is that the internet generation of kids, they don't need comedians to tell them jokes. They're way funnier. Like the internet is way funnier than comedians are these days, unless they're gonna try and like keep up. Okay. Yeah, you should watch Game Grumps. I've seen some clips of that. I've seen, you know, they still use a lot of clips of JonTron, even though JonTron has talked race realism online. Like they don't care about that. You know, it's actually really, it's very promising. But there's no reason why we should falter on the culture war at all. I don't like that Liana K is saying that. I get the sense that she's just really ignorant about why it's important that we fight the culture war continuously. I'm not saying anybody has to get hurt, but if we stop, then the only thing that's left is real world violence. And we don't want that, right? But I mean, and this is something I made a point, which we absolutely do not want in terms of real violence. But when you're a woman, I guess real violence is less of a danger to you, because that's the truth, okay? If the culture war escalated to a violent war because for whatever reason, voices were silenced. Because the thing is, if you censor people, then the only recourse that's left is violence, is physical confrontation. And I guarantee you that if the left, like Antifa and shit like that, if they feel silenced, and they do, right now they feel silenced, they lash out with violence. If you want violence, then try to silence, is what I'm saying. So, but the thing is, when you're a woman, violence isn't really a problem for you. People are going to look out for you. They're going to protect you. You're going to be safe. That's why you can sit there behind a flesh wall of white knights and say, we should stop arguing and just like hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Because I'm the smartest person in the room, because I'm in the middle ground. You know that making a jab at her about being a woman is going to make her play victim, which basically just like plays into my entire point. So she's going to play victim anyway. One time I did a video with Bunny Blackwell back in the day when I used to do videos with her. And we were doing through a Liana K video, and Liana K got butthurt as fuck. And she went on Twitter, and she was like, people are talking about me, and they don't get what I'm saying, and they're strawmanning my position, and they're bullying me, and it's being really mean, and saying mean things, and I wish it was up. And people were commenting, saying, it's okay, baby. I know what you meant. Those people are just big bad bullies. They're just being mean to you. They don't know what you're just smarter than them, and they're jealous. They're just jealous. So, nah, fuck her. It's fine. I don't owe her shit. So let's move on. Because this is the culture war we're talking about. Alright, helicopters will solve a lot of these problems. Yeah, for sure. Joey did like my tweet. Yes, he did. Okay, so Vampire the Masquerade. You guys ever heard of Vampire the Masquerade? I meant to do this before I started. but let's go to Wikipedia. All right. I'm sure I can trust them for this at least. So Vampire the Masquerade is a tabletop role-playing game created by Mark Reinhagen and released in 1991 by White Wolf Publishing. So it's a tabletop role-playing game. Okay? It's set in the World of Darkness. The World of Darkness is basically a world where there's all of the fucking Universal movie monsters live, and you can play as any number of them, as far as I know. So let me be clear here. All right? I don't play Vampire the Masquerade. I was actually never really a fan. But when I was a young man, I used to work in a game store. And I was working in a game store when Vampire the Masquerade, like when it first came out. So I was working there in 1991. I was also in the game store when Magic the Gathering first came out. And I watched them both blow up. And somebody had me try Vampire, and I did not like. First off, I didn't care about the system. Like I mean like the setting. I didn't care about being a vampire. Like I just thought the whole thing was so, like Anne Rice shit. You know, it just wasn't for me. You know, it just wasn't for me. But I really didn't like the storyteller system. It seemed so dumbed down and simplified that I wasn't crazy about it. However, that being said, I know that it was for some people, and I did not besmirch them for what they liked. I just knew that my taste was different. I like things a little bit crunchier. I like things a little bit more thematic, things that are a little bit more, I don't know. What interests me is just different stuff, right? White Wolf, yeah. So Vampire the Masquerade is a tabletop role-playing game where you play as vampires, specifically. And there's all these different clans, and, you know, there's a lot of politics and stuff like that. And when there was, and I'm not sure, like, I meant to look at this, so I should, like, check it out at some point and look into it. But this is when LARPing started, as far as I know. I mean, maybe LARPing existed in some form. Like, I mean, one could make the argument that, like, when I was 10 and I was playing Cops and Robbers, I was LARPing. But when I was coming up, and I was just getting into tabletop gaming, which is around a little before the time that Vampire came out, I was a big D&D person. I played Cyberpunk, you know, Macho Women with Guns. Those were the games I liked to play. And so Vampire comes out, and then, like, shortly after that, they make it into a LARP. And the LARP scene, and I could be wrong here, but I believe the LARPing scene started in Chicago. I should look it up, because I know they're gonna yell at me, and they're gonna say that I'm really wrong. And where did LARPing Vampire start? Mind's Eye Theater. Let's see if they have any info. What the fuck? Tom Dowd, Chris, and Ken Cliff. I don't know. Yeah, White Wolf, 1993. Here's what I remember. So like, LARPing really not going in the 90s. Antifa LARPing. Yeah, they are LARPing. It's actually kind of relevant to that, isn't it? LARPing is live action role playing. So but here's the thing. In like a year after Vampire the Masquerade, the tabletop game came out, somebody who I had a mutual friend with had the bright idea that they would essentially turn it from a tabletop game to a live action role playing game. And it was this guy who had, like, I forget his name because I didn't really know him very well. But he had serious, like, you know, Peter Pan issues, and he would rent out spaces or use his apartment or whatever and have people come over, and they would dress up and they would play vampires all night and, like, walk around. And this was LARPing. This was LARPing Vampire. Okay? Live, yes, where you act out your character. And I have a couple images that give you examples of LARPing. Now, to me, this is my opinion, LARPing is some of the gayest shit ever. Like, to me, I love role-playing games, but I find LARPing to be so incredibly cringy. It's just not for me. So if anybody here likes it, no offense. I respect you as a person, but do not ever ask me if I want to do this, because this shit is really, really cringy. Peter Pan issues. I mean, like, he is a Peter Pan person. Like, he did not want to grow up. That's what I'm saying. Failure to launch willingly. You know? Here's another image. This looks like it was actually from Chicago. So people would wear trench coats, and I mean, it's so bad. Pretty sure I recognize those guys. This is what LARPing looks like, okay? It can work. It takes very committed players. Yeah, most people are not. And I remember in the 90s, I was going to I watched the LARPing scene kind of enter into like conventions. So like I used to go to Gen Con when it was in Wisconsin, the Quartering, and I used to go up there and spend the whole weekend there, and I would do tabletop gaming. I'd try all these different types of tabletop games. I'd try out miniatures games, and I would maybe like try some board games or card games. And I found some really great games, like Lunch Money is a really great card game. If you've never heard of it, definitely check it out. It's not collectible. You just get one deck. It's a lot of fun. You know, and I was really into Warzone, which was a really cool like miniature strategy game that did not require you to spend as much money as Warhammer does. So I was able to get into that because I was like seriously on a budget. But it was a lot of fun, right? But the LARPing thing, the LARPing scene, I watched it enter into Gen Con over the years. And it became really popular. And in particular, and I think this is worth pointing out, so I don't know if you noticed from these images, okay? LARPing is really, really popular with women. They love it. Look at this image. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women. 1, 2, 3 men. I wouldn't say the ratio is like that. There's probably still more men, but women love LARPing. When it comes to tabletop games, they like it the most. And particularly Vampire. Because, well, Vampire in particular, because you get to dress up as, you know, as what you think a vampire would look like, which basically means they just got to wear like their goth makeup and like whatever, you know, corsets and shit like that. So Vampire the Masquerade, when it became a LARP, it was extremely attractive to chubby goth chicks that happen to own a corset. And I am not kidding. And one of the reasons why is because you get to, you know, you get to be more extroverted, you get to play a character, and you get a lot of attention. It's just, I'm sorry, it's just true. It's popular. Is it a good way to pick up chicks? Only if you want those kinds of chicks, which I don't. I mean, I didn't. I still don't, but I didn't even back then. I just could not get into it. That being said, so Vampire is probably one of, if not the most, it's the role-playing game with the highest population of women players, probably. I don't know the numbers. I couldn't prove it, but that would be my suspicion. You should avoid women that LARP. You should avoid women. I kid. But maybe. So here's what happened. So I'm going to get into. Big titty goth chicks. Yeah, but they're big everywhere. That's the thing. They're not just... Most of them tended to be a bit overweight, and the ones that weren't, they already had boyfriends, or they were just like narcissists that wanted attention, and they weren't going to like date anybody at the LARPing events most of the time. Women that LARP don't want to grow up. Yeah, well, why would they? Well, they don't have to. 20 to 30%. Yeah, that's still... So Hearthhewn Paladin says, yeah, it was more popular with girls, but my group was only 20 to 30% at most, and I met my first girlfriend whilst LARPing. The dating scene around LARP is a cesspool. Never again. Absolutely. It's like, ugh. Most people are, like, there's a lot of people, like, fucking each other because they're everyone's thirsty, and it's gross. And yeah, 20 to 30% is not, it's not 50-50, but it's definitely more than most places. So, especially if they're going there of their own free will, which a lot of times they are. The thing about vampire is the LARP version, as I understood it, almost had no system. I think it was like rock scissors paper to like settle any differences. I don't know though, because I didn't play it. This is just like when I was asking people, how the fuck do you play this game when everyone's pretending to be shit? You know, like how could you really do it? And there were moderators that would walk around and referee shit, and then it was like rock scissors paper to get anything done. But the thing about LARPing is the barrier for entry is very low. So a woman would not have to learn a bunch of rules. She would not have to be interested in strategy. She wouldn't have to do those things. She would just have to be willing to dress up. And essentially it's like playing dress up and participating, you know, in the social, because it was largely a social thing. It wasn't like there was combat going on all the time. Most of it was people socializing as not themselves. Yeah, substitutes for a dice roll. Yeah, I'm sure that there's a system. I just didn't know a whole lot about it. My point is that it was made very easy to use, and a lot of times, from what I understood, most of the women players, they didn't even really participate in a lot of the contested dice roll-y stuff. They just wanted to do the actual, like, you know, the socializing and the conversational part more so. So I got the sense it just wasn't for me, right? But here's the thing. Maybe it's connected, maybe it's not. So there's a new... When I did my video about Anita Sarkeesian in the live stream I did a little while back, I talked about how Pathfinder had added like some section on gender and it was all, you know, annoying and fucked up. I shared this on my Facebook page, and somebody shared with me some info about the newest edition of Vampire the Masquerade. So I want to read this to you guys, okay? Because this is worse than what Pathfinder had. This is terrible. And I wonder how much of it is because there are more women that play Vampire. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and read that, okay? So, Appendix 3, Advice for Considerate Play. This is being printed in a book for people who are looking to play Vampire. Alright. One of the best things... So this is character and player identity. One of the best things about tabletop role-playing is that you can play someone different from yourself. No gender, ethnicity, sexual preference, disability, class, or position in society is off limits. But remember, this freedom comes with a responsibility to your fellow players. When portraying someone not like you, the good choice is to create a complex, nuanced, and respectful portrayal. Incidentally, this also makes for a better game. For instance, your table may include people who identify as trans, and whether they plan to transition or not, they will probably not feel comfortable if you portray the trans experience as a simple preference or a condition to be cured, or if you just assume that all their characters are also trans. Always respect your players' identities and remember that they do not necessarily align with the identities of other characters. Alright? Kinda cringy. Kinda cringy. I mean, why are you telling people how they should interact with other people? Isn't it really up to them? Isn't it? But it gets worse. In a storytelling game where imagination runs riot and lines are made up on the fly in a split second, using the wrong pronoun for a character or player or accidentally dropping an offensive stereotype in a description are understandable mistakes. Still mistakes, but understandable. Rather than fearing representing different identities and thus excluding, for instance, the trans experience or the experience of growing up as an Arab kid in Northern Europe from your game, God. Play with sexuality, gender, nationality, and so on. Who knows? You may even discover aspects of yourself that you never suspected. Hey, if it turns out you think you're trans because you played one in a game, that's a good thing. If you need help with making your portrayal respectful and true to life, Ask someone who belongs to the group that you're portraying for tips and insights. Hearthhewn Paladin says, the thing is, it's really easy in a LARP to screw with people emotionally, and there certainly was at least emotional abuse. Well, you know what? I would avoid LARPing with those people. Maybe they shouldn't be LARPing if they cannot get it through that they're playing a game. It's like when I was 7, I used to play cops and robbers, or I would play wrestling, and we play different wrestlers. If we like trash talk each other in the game, and someone, or if we did cops and robbers and we like, you know, engaged in some like banter, and somebody got butthurt over it, I don't know that I would play. I just wouldn't associate with them anymore, because I'd be like, well, I don't think that, you know, you have the mental fortitude to play make-believe cops and robbers with me, because you might think that I'm serious when I say put down the Skittles or else. All right, I had to take this is not an article. This is actually from the newest edition of Vampire the Masquerade. It's the Player's Handbook, I think. All right, so let me read the next bit. Fascism in play. Vampire the Masquerade is not a fascist-friendly game. If you are a neo-Nazi, alt-righter, or whatever you're calling yourself nowadays, we urge you to put this book down and call someone who you trust to talk about where you went wrong in your life. Oh, shit. So fascism in play is not okay. But playing vampires and like sucking the blood of normal human beings and all that, you know, that's fine. It's the I don't care about vampires, monsters, you know, Lothario figures. That's fine. It's the fascism that I have a problem with. This is so annoying. And like, you're literally telling people, like, let me ask you guys a question, okay? If you were a fascist and you also like to play Vampire the Masquerade, and I know that's a bit of a pill to swallow, but just stay with me here. And then the book told you that you should put the book down and talk to somebody about where you went so wrong in life. Do you think that an actual fascist would be like, you know what, I should probably stop playing Vampire the Masquerade, I should probably call a friend, and I should probably figure out where I went wrong, because I want to play Vampire the Masquerade so much that I have to like give up my fascist ways to do it? That's not going to happen. This is virtue signaling, plain and simple. This is not to change the mind of any neo-Nazis that might be wanting to play vampire. There is no... That's such an absurd notion. Okay? This is such an absurd notion. This is for people like chubby goth chicks that buy this type of shit to pick up and read and say, oh, I love it. I love it. They said that. Yes, queen. Yes. No fascists in my game. I mean, I'm sure Antifa plays Vampire the Masquerade. I mean, how do you prepare for... you know, actually going out and breaking windows and like knocking over garbage cans? Is there negative side effects to drinking Jewish blood? I don't know. It's probably a little high in cholesterol. It's probably a little dry in here. It's dry. Okay, so anyway, that said, kindred culture is inherently monstrous. Part of the political horror of Vampire the Masquerade is surviving in a culture that worships the bad old ways. Large parts of kindred society, especially the Camarilla and the Sabar, adhere to cults of tradition, ascribe to the idea of humiliating their enemies with overwhelming wealth and force, and praises religious fundamentalism or even pre-modern ideals like feudal rule. Many kindred are old enough to remember World War II in detail and are bound to have opinions on what's going on in the world right now. Even so, it's pretty easy to steer the game away from totalitarian perspectives, emphasize the differences between individual vampires and between factions as well as inside factions, tell stories about infighting, surprising kindness, and new ideas, play thin bloods, caitiff, anarchs, or even Camarilla members in a Hellene, I don't know any of the shit I'm reading right now, in a Hellene city where most of the ivory towers traditions have been adopted to suit the present. Another way is to play. Another way is to. What? Another way is to play is to portray. God damn it. You guys need an editor. Another way is to portray kindred society in all of its malicious and fascist glory, but let the player characters oppose the system from the inside or from without. We gotta fight fascism, guys. We gotta fight fascism in 2018, even if it's in a fictional fucking role-playing game. Just like real life. Fighting phony fascists. Totalitarian perspective. That's a super projection right there. Yeah. Jewish blood makes you guilty for not calling your mother. Call your mother. What if someone wants to play a fascist though? Or a storyteller wants to introduce a fascist SPC. You know, if I ever had to play Vampire the Masquerade, I would play a fascist. I'd be the only Hispanic fascist in the vicinity. There are plenty of those throughout the world of darkness. I would confuse the shit out of them. I'd also probably be like a gay trans person too. Monsters, but many with pretty faces. They can be a tragic villain, a former friend who fell, or even someone who the player characters think of as an ally. They might be the Bruja neo-Nazi, the far-right Ventru billionaire, or the Zimic eugenicist. Whatever face they present, the player character should be given the satisfaction of redeeming or destroying them eventually. So, like, we're basically telling you how your game should go. If you're going to include fascists in your game, they have to lose. They have to. And your players have to beat them. Otherwise, you're reinforcing fascist norms, and we can't have that even in the fictional world of your imagination. Let me see. Totalitarian. Brian Martinez, observing libertarian. The original Vampire the Masquerade lore is filled to the brim with a history of a dog-eat-dog struggle to claim the social ranks in both the Camarilla and the Sabbat. The entire backlog library of Vampire the Masquerade is literally, non-figuratively, unironically fascistic. Yeah, well, it's almost like these people don't know the definition of the word fascism. Almost. Almost. Alright, so I'm going to skip ahead. I'll do another video on more of this stuff, because I know that I went a little long because of the shooting, and I don't want this to be too long of a video. But let me skip ahead, because this is going to get more interesting. They're literally neutering Vampire the Masquerade. Literally neutering it. They're thinning out the blood with Kool-Aid. They're thinning it out. Sexual violence in games. Let's not mince words here. Vampires, since John Polidori's story, The Vampire, was published in 1819, have been used as a metaphor for human predation. They seduce, beguile, coerce, dominate, and sometimes outright force humans to perform their will. After all, they are apex predators and consider it their right. Vampires who embrace this perspective ignore or outright laugh at consent. Consent in this case can be non-sexual, but the nature of the kiss and the vampire as human predator carries with them an aura of sex. Polidori's original vampire was a sexual predator who drank the blood of virgins on their wedding nights. Polidori was Lord Byron's friend, and literary historians argue that The Vampire was an attempt to depict the poet as a deviant and a sexual predator. While your Vampire the Masquerade game could strive to avoid sexual content at all costs, it's important to be aware of the potential for sexual violence as a theme. With that in mind, let's look at a few key points. Some scenes can resemble sexual assault. Some feeding scenes, sorry. This could be a huge deal for players at your table who have been assaulted. Unless the character has a willing herd or is a dedicated consensualist. What? Consensualist? Bagger, farmer, or blood leech. Feeding scenes often involve using disciplines, tricking or forcing a human into a situation where you can attack them and steal some of their blood. Exploration into the depths of the human psyche can be intense and worthwhile, but only with the enthusiastic buy-in of your table. If your group wants to avoid the whole, quote, vampire as sexual predator, quote, theme, at least for their own characters, encourage them to try the more ethical predator types. Ethical predator types? Oh my god. Listed above. Or let your players invest in a willing herd. The game is designed to allow players to fight against the worst in their nature instead of just giving into it. Chronicle tenets. None of the examples of chronicle tenets. I don't know what that is. I'm just going to keep going. In V5, I think that's what they're calling this, Vampire 5th edition. They could have called it VV. I don't know why they didn't do that, but allow characters to use and abuse humans. Even the hard-boiled street code set that includes the tenet, respect others and demand respect, removing someone's consent is never respectful. This is intentional. Vampire becomes a stronger moral game if you choose a set of chronicle tenets that everyone around the table can agree with. Predator-prey relations don't have morality. What the fuck? No, they don't. They don't. Oh my god. Stains are your friend. If a player character, including your own, does something that feels vicious and breaks a chronicle tenet, like removing or ignoring a human's consent, feel free to suggest handing out one or more stains. I don't know what a stain is. Sounds like a penalty of some kind. Either ask the storyteller to add one, or if you are the storyteller, have a player add a stain. Some vampires don't have much compassion and have convictions to match, but nonetheless, every time they turn humans into slaves or playthings, their beast gets stronger. And then there's, I don't have any more of this scan, but then it says allow for self-reflection. But you see what's going on here, right? Like, they're literally neutering vampires' nature so they can make people feel comfortable at the table. I'm sorry. This is gonna... I'm not even a fan of this game, alright? I'm really not. But this is gonna kill it. I don't want that to happen. I want people to be able to enjoy whatever they enjoy. Wasn't this a PC game? I had it. Yeah, it was. No, not a board game, a tabletop game, Joey Jojo. It was a tabletop game before it was a video game. That's sort of like... It was all inspired by Anne Rice, I believe. I think the Anne Rice novels came out, and then Vampire came out. That's how come I get the feeling that it's... There's a lot of women involved in the design and the development of the role-playing game. I never looked into it, though, so I could be completely wrong, and I'm sure that Heart-Hewn Paladin is gonna clear the air on that. So... But what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is happening to Vampire the Masquerade? Yeah, I know that. Observing Libertarian says, women join LARPs the same way and for the same reason that many started gaming. Attention. And just like in video games, they're now trying to change the scene to better suit them. For sure. Heart-Hewn Paladin says, I'd argue that. It's not about pleasing the players, it's about pleasing the critics who'll accuse it of being fascistic, racist, sexist, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know, like... I don't know. I never looked into who developed or designed Vampire the Masquerade. Obviously, if it's just the culture around it, and yeah, I think the journalists and critics are a big part of the culture around it, then that's still bad enough. It's not necessary to, I guess, you know, learn who's involved with the development of the game, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter much really, because like if let's say Anita Sarkeesian, I'm just going to use her as an example. It doesn't really matter who it is. Makes a bunch of criticism about Vampire LARPing, saying that it's sexist and bad for women and, you know, bad for trans people and people of color and all that. And it, like, reinforces ideas of rape culture because vampires, right? Well, even if it was somebody outside like her, and there were only men that designed the game, because our general default position on women and feminism, which often people treat as though they're the same fucking shit. Our default position is, if a woman complains, we should do what she asks, whether she's interested or not, whether she plays it or not, whether she knows anything about it or not. Then it makes sense that they would put this in there. Even if they were even if they were just paying lip service and they ultimately don't care what players do. They're pandering at best, and they really believe it at worst. And I think that in this case, definitely, they really believe it. They really think that they need to make a statement about fascism in a LARP, in a role-playing game about vampires. They really need, they need to talk about consent in a role-playing game about vampires. They need to talk about that. What the fuck? Why? Hertune Paladin. This whole thing is because of Dice Dogs accusing Vampire of being made by and for fascistic Swedish edgelords. Yeah, I have a thing about that. Is this what you're talking about? How Dog with Dice. How New White Wolf marketed Vampire the Masquerade to alt-right and neo-Nazis. They don't see, but making the statement is like admitting to these people. Don't do that shit. Don't do that shit. Fucking grow a spine, motherfuckers. You're not responsible for who likes your games. What happened to people like Frank Zappa that basically said, I don't care who listens to my fucking music. That doesn't mean that they represent me or I represent them. They just like my music. Will there be a 50 Shades LARP with a section on fighting the patriarchy? Oh, God. I'm sure there is one somewhere. There are feminist tabletop games, and they're fucking awful. There was one about witches that I looked at. Holy shit. It was really bad. All right. Well, I will do another stream later in the week. We'll get into some different things. I have more stuff about Vampire the Masquerade, about menstruation. I am not kidding. Gender and pregnancy. And then I'll look at this. Maybe I'll look at this thing on the Dog with Dice. And then I'd like to talk about... What the fuck is this? No, not this. I'd like to talk about this Souls thing. Souls games are great, except for the sexist messages from some players. It's about the Dark Souls Bloodborne series. Because that's my shit. I love Dark Souls. And I've played all of those games. So I'm definitely going to have some opinions. And then maybe I'll look at this Cyberpunk 2077 interview. But I'll do more stuff later in the week. If you guys could watch my streams, maybe subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to try and do more of them. I appreciate you guys coming out. 32 people, that's pretty good. You know, I'm a small channel, but maybe I'll grow. Do you guys think I can? Do you think if I keep doing these types of things, I'll grow? I'd like to. So, anyway, thanks for coming on. I'm going to go cook some shish kebabs and have those for dinner. So, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good night. And I'll see you later in the week. All right? Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Like, subscribe, comment. All right. Later.